Mine to wield. Surge. Mine to wield. Mine to wield.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's video of free-to-play Skirk showcase. Now first of all, since there's no massive attack buffer for Skirk at all, attack is actually a very important stat for her, which makes the R5 Furina of the Deep the strongest free-to-play weapon for her. By the way, personally I don't recommend the Calamity of issue, not just because you have to bring a shield, but also because it doesn't buff her burst at all, killing off on her playstyle as a burst quick swap. Now as for the artifact, although the best one is the Furina of the Deep set, you can actually go for the Hunter set, which is basically just as strong as the new set, provided you are not using any crit rate weapon including her signature, and you are bringing Furina with her all time to activate its passive. Anyway, I'll be using this set for this showcase, just because I still haven't got a decent Furina set after farming for 3 months. Well anyway, talent wise, her elemental skill is for spamming normal attack on field, whereas her burst is for quick swap, so upgrade them as you see fit, and whatever you do, just don't touch the first one, it's completely useless. Alright, now let's talk about her mechanic, which seems kinda complicated, but honestly it can all be translated into one single purpose, making her completely unplayable without a full team of Hydro Cryo teammates, just like Nilo. So let's break it down. First of all, similar to Newvilad, she loses a ton of damage when paired with any non-Hydro and Cryo teammates, and honestly not a single character is worth this kind of loss, so just don't bring anyone other than Hydro and Cryo. On the other hand, just like Marika, instead of using the traditional normal energy, she uses what's called Serpent's Subtlety, which not only is used for her burst, but also is used as a duration for her elemental skill. So in other words, this energy system forces you to make a choice between the skill and burst, choosing between 2 different playstyles, and regardless what you choose, you need energy. Although she gains 45 energy by using her elemental skill, it's not enough for either of the playstyle yet, so you need more. Another very important mechanic of Skirk are these rips, which is created by triggering any cryo reactions, except for melt. Honestly, you can feel just how much they're struggling to make her as unviable as possible outside of freeze. Well, in any case, absorbing these rifts gathers 8 energy each, which is done with different ways depending on your playstyle. For spamming normal attack with elemental skill, the best way to absorb them is via the alternative burst, which is a burst that's only available after using her skill. In addition to obtaining energy, the alternative burst also buffs your damage the more rifts you absorb, so it's best to use it when there's 3 rifts. However, when you check her skill description, it's stated that the max duration of her skill is 12.5 seconds, so absorbing 3 rifts is not enough just yet. Now that's where her charge attack comes in, which also absorbs the rifts. So basically, as long as you keep generating rifts with the cryo reactions, you just have to do a single charge attack when your skill is about to end, and then you will be having the max duration. That's all you need to know about this playstyle. Now as for the burst quick swap, it's much more simple compared to the previous in terms of gameplay. For maximum damage, make sure you have 3 rifts on the field, and hold your elemental skill to absorb the rifts, and follow up with the burst, and that's it. Just be careful not to accidentally tap her elemental skill, as you stop her from using this burst at all. Now it's time to answer the most asked question. Is Escoffier needed for Skirk? Well, I would say she's on the level of must-have. Not only she's the strongest cryo sub DPS by far, but also she's the strongest damage support with her 55% resistance rate for the entire team. This is especially crucial against enemies with high resistance, which is fairly common nowadays, and there's simply no alternative to her at all. So yeah, as you see from this comparison, she's completely powerless against high resistant enemy without Escoffier. After spending so much time explaining her kit, finally it's time for some team showcase. The first team is going to be the most budget team available for Skirk, in which, to be perfectly honest, I think it's pretty bad. even with such a huge team restriction, her damage is not necessarily better than the others. The only advantage is that it's very simple to play, probably the simplest one for a long time. Just make sure you switch Charlotte right before Skirk for the DPS buff, and you're good to go.
Witness the power.
On the other hand, if you have a well-built Rosalia with C2 and above, it's a pretty good choice to trade Dahlia with her. Not only it generates more risk for Skirk, but also Rosalia buffs Skirk by 15% crit rate, while also contribute to the damage output with her off-field burst. Honestly, these are the only viable 4-star teams, as most other 4-star units are just bad if not completely trash. So that's why if you can only afford these 4-star teams, I don't think you should pull Skirk at all, as there are far better options for you without team restriction. Alright, since most 4-star units are trash as mentioned, it's time to include some 5-star teammates, which obviously the first one is going to be the Escoffier. Not only is much more smoother to play, but also the damage becomes much more acceptable than the previous. So yeah, if you already pulled Escoffier, going for Skirk is not a bad choice at all, even if you don't have any other 5-star teammates. Now on the other hand, if you're an old player who has Furina and Yelan but not Escoffier, here's the showcase for you. And honestly, it's actually pretty powerful, much better than Escoffier alone. Not only they're a great buffer for Skirk, but also they're a very strong start DPS by themselves, especially with the buff of Hydro Resonance, as it's better for the meta combo. So as long as you are not out against enemies with resistance, you'll have a pretty good time with this team. Now finally it's time to show you the most budget version of the full 5-star team, with C0R0 Escoffier, Furina and Yelan. In any case, I would say this is the point where Skirk actually becomes brokenly strong, as not only does it have some of the best damage among all C0 teams, but it's also one of the most branded teams to play. Honestly, nothing much to talk about for this team, as it's just purely strong and simple to play, which is to be expected as it costs at least 4 5-star units. By the way, if you happen to have Lali, and she's not occupied with Marika, then she's actually a very good alternative to Yelan, or even Furina. For your information, she's the only Hydro Cryo Nutland support, which makes her the only one who can carry the Scroll of Hero artifact, buffing the whole team by 40% damage bonus without any condition. That's already on par with your C0 Furina on average. On top of that, the Cryo Resonance will have a much better coverage, as there's 3 Cryo units to maintain the Cryo Aura. Alright, finally at last, this is just my personal take. If you didn't pull Escoffier in the last patch, it's best not to pull Skirk, as she will be easily countered by any high resistant enemy without any solution at all. On the other hand, if you do have Escoffier, then yes, she's actually a pretty good pull, but only for C0R0 Skirk, as her restricted element is still a major downside, which can easily be countered by most elemental shields. Not to mention the bosses nowadays are restricting the element, like for example the one in the Abyss right now. Anyway, that's about everything for this video. So what do you think about Skirk? Please let me know if you have different opinion or experience. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.